The great hall of the Stellar Council fell silent as the holographic display filled the center of the room. A small blue-green planet spun slowly, its single moon orbiting in an endless dance. Senior Observer West stood before the gathered council members, his tall frame rigid with concern. "This is the third planet of a yellow star system," West began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "The inhabitants call it Earth." He paused, letting the name sink in. "What you're about to see will disturb you." The hologram shifted, showing scenes from Earth's history. Wars, explosions, cities rising and falling, all playing out in rapid succession. The council members watched, their expressions growing more troubled with each passing moment. In just 300 solar cycles, they went from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary space travel. West continued. "Their rate of advancement is unprecedented." Council Leader North leaned forward, her crystalline features catching the light. "Many species advance quickly, Observer West. Why does this one concern you?" West touched a control panel, and new images appeared. Brain scans, neural patterns, and behavior studies floated in the air. "Their minds are different. They can switch from extreme violence to profound compassion in moments. They create art about destruction. They imagine countless ways their own species might perish, yet they continue to advance. They turn their nightmares into entertainment." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Council Member East stood up, his sensor arrays blinking rapidly. "Impossible. No species can maintain stability with such contradictions." "Yet they do," West replied. "But that's not what triggered our warning systems." He brought up a new display, showing complex patterns of brainwave activity. "Look familiar?" The council chamber erupted in chaos. North raised her hand for silence, but it took several moments for order to return. The patterns floating before them matched ancient warnings, passed down through generations. Warnings about the Destroyers, a mythical species that had supposedly driven the first ones to extinction. "Surely you're not suggesting," East began, but couldn't finish the thought. "I'm not suggesting anything," West said firmly. "I'm showing you data. Their neural patterns match the warning signatures by 97%. And there's more." The hologram changed again, showing human military exercises, disaster responses, and space programs. They practice for every possible catastrophe. They prepare for dangers they haven't even encountered. Their entertainment constantly depicts scenarios of their own extinction, yet instead of being paralyzed by fear, they use it to become stronger. North stood, her crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the floor. "What are their current capabilities?" "Limited space travel within their solar system, primitive fusion technology, basic genetic engineering." West listed off the facts. "But their rate of advancement is increasing. Based on our projections, they could achieve interstellar travel within 50 cycles." "So young, yet so dangerous," East muttered. "The warnings were clear about species like this. If the patterns match—" "We all know what the warnings say," North interrupted. "The question is, what do we do about it?" West displayed one final image, a human child comforting an injured animal. "This is what makes them truly dangerous. They can show kindness to other species, even as they prepare for war. They protect the weak while building weapons of mass destruction. They're walking contradictions, and our logic-based society has no framework for handling them." The council chamber fell into deep discussion. Some argued for immediate containment. Others suggested studying them further. A few brave voices even proposed peaceful contact. "Enough," North finally declared. "We've seen species rise before, but never one like this. The warnings exist for a reason." She turned to West. "Continue your observation, but prepare the fleet. If they show any sign of achieving interstellar capability before we're ready, we'll have no choice but to act." As the council members filed out, West stayed behind, watching the hologram of Earth slowly rotating. In all his cycles of observation, he'd never seen a species that frightened him more. Not because of their technology or their weapons, but because they seemed to thrive on the very things that should destroy them. The humans had no idea they were being watched. No idea that their greatest strengths were the very things that terrified the most powerful coalition in the galaxy. No idea that ancient warnings, written before their species even existed, might seal their fate. West could only hope they'd make the right choice when the time came, because if they didn't, the galaxy would never be the same. Captain James Miller stood at the viewport of his cargo ship, the Star Hauler, watching Mars grow larger in the distance. The red planet's surface features were becoming clearer now, its familiar valleys and ice caps visible to the naked eye. After 15 years of running supplies between Earth and the Mars colonies, the view still hadn't gotten old. "Captain," called Tom from the sensor station, his voice carrying a note of confusion. "I'm picking up something weird." Miller walked over to the sensor display, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. "Define weird, Tom." "That's just it, sir. I can't." Tom pointed to a blip on his screen that shouldn't have been there. "It's like there's a hole in space, a place where our sensors say nothing exists, not even empty space." Miller frowned. After 20 years in space, he'd learned that impossible readings usually meant trouble. "Send the data to my station, and get me a line to Mars Control." Before he could reach his chair, the ship's lights flickered. All the displays went dark for a second, then came back online. "Power surge?" Miller asked, already knowing it wasn't that simple. "No, sir," Tom replied, his fingers flying over his console. "Whatever it was, it scanned us deep. I've got energy readings unlike anything I've ever seen." Aboard the cloaked observation vessel, Agent Gray watched the human cargo ship with growing unease. The scan hadn't been planned. An equipment malfunction had caused it. But the data it revealed was disturbing. "Report," commanded the ship's computer. Gray studied the readings. The humans are using primitive fusion drives and basic scanner technology. But he paused, double-checking the data. Their pilot noticed our presence almost immediately. They shouldn't have been able to detect anything through our cloaking field. Threat assessment. Their cargo ship is carrying mining equipment, water processors, and cultivation supplies. No weapons beyond point defense lasers for asteroid deflection. Gray watched as the human ship continued its course to Mars, apparently deciding to ignore the anomaly. But that's what makes them dangerous. They saw something impossible and simply adapted. No panic, no chaos. They just accepted it and moved on. The computer processed this information. Similar behavior patterns have been observed globally. Humans regularly encounter the impossible. Instead of rejecting it, they incorporate it into their understanding of reality. Back on the Star Hauler, Miller was recording his log entry. "Mars Control says we're the third ship this month to report sensor ghosts in this sector. Could be equipment failure, could be something else." Adding it to the anomaly database for analysis. Tom called over from his station. "Sir, I've been thinking. If something was out there, watching us, then it's probably still there," Miller finished. "And it probably heard you say that." He smiled slightly. "Well, if anyone's listening, welcome to our neighborhood. Try not to be creepy about it." In the observation ship, Gray nearly jumped when the human captain spoke those words. It was impossible for them to know they were being watched, and yet. Behavioral note. Gray dictated to his log. "Humans often appear to joke about serious situations. This seems to be a coping mechanism, but it also demonstrates their ability to acknowledge multiple possibilities simultaneously. They can treat a situation as both threatening and amusing." The Star Hauler continued its journey to Mars, its crew going about their duties as if nothing had happened. But Miller noticed Tom had adjusted their sensors to keep tracking that empty spot in space, not because they were afraid, but because humans had learned long ago that the universe was full of impossible things. Gray watched them disappear into Mars orbit, then transmitted his daily report to the Council. Humans continue to demonstrate dangerous levels of adaptability. They treat the unknown not as a threat, but as a puzzle to be solved. Most concerning of all, they seemed to enjoy it. The observation ship's computer processed this report, adding it to thousands of others. Each one pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity was unlike anything they had encountered before, and that made them more dangerous than any advanced weapon system could ever be. As the Earth rotated below, billions of humans went about their lives, unaware that their greatest strength, their ability to face the impossible with curiosity instead of fear, was exactly what terrified the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The message came at exactly 3:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Every screen on Earth lit up with a single word, translated simultaneously into every human language. Perish. Commander Anna Stone stood in the Pentagon's command center, watching as reports flooded in from around the world. The message hadn't just appeared on communication devices. It had taken over everything with a display. Traffic signs, sports scoreboards, even children's toys with small screens. Status report, she demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos of the command center. Massive objects detected at the edge of the solar system, Commander, reported Lieutenant Mark. His hand shook slightly as he pulled up the astronomical data. They're big, bigger than anything we've ever built, and they're moving towards Earth. Stone studied the readings. The objects were ships, clearly artificial, and they were arranging themselves in an attack formation. But something about their positioning caught her attention. They're leaving gaps in their line, she muttered. Big ones. Why would an advanced fleet leave such obvious tactical weaknesses? The room fell silent as new data appeared on the main screen. The alien ships were broadcasting their power readings openly. They wanted Earth to see exactly how advanced they were. They're trying to scare us, Stone said suddenly, her eyes widening with realization. This isn't just an attack, it's a show of force. They want us to see how hopeless resistance would be. In orbit above Earth, the International Space Station's crew watched as the distant ships grew closer. Captain Williams, using the station's advanced telescopes, noticed something odd about their movement patterns. Houston, he radioed down. These ships, they're keeping their distance from each other. Maximum spacing. It's like they're more afraid of friendly fire than they are of us. Back in the Pentagon, Stone had reached the same conclusion. Pull up every scrap of data we have on their communications, not just the message. I want to know how they sent it. The technical team worked frantically. After 10 minutes, a junior analyst named Pete looked up from his station. Commander, we found something weird in the transmission pattern. The message was sent with redundancies. Lots of them. Like they were terrified we might miss it. Stone paced the command center, pieces falling into place. They have the power to hijack every screen on Earth simultaneously. They have ships that make our largest vessels look like toys. They could probably wipe us out without a warning. She stopped pacing. So why warn us at all? The answer hit her just as new signals began flooding in. The alien ships were broadcasting more data, detailed scans of Earth's military capabilities, population centers, and technological infrastructure. They're not trying to intimidate us, Stone breathed. They're trying to convince themselves. They're afraid. In low Earth orbit, Captain Miller's cargo ship Starhauler had been recalled from its Mars run. As they passed the moon, his sensor operator Tom picked up strange readings from the alien fleet. Captain, Tom called out, their ships keep adjusting formation every time we make the slightest course change. It's like they're overreacting to everything we do. Miller watched the massive alien vessels through his viewport. They got all that power, all that technology, but they're jumping at shadows. Why would a species that advanced be so scared of us? In the Pentagon, Commander Stone was asking herself the same question. She clicked on her comm link to address all Earth's military commands simultaneously. All units, maintain current positions. Do not, I repeat, do not initiate any aggressive actions. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We're dealing with an enemy that's powerful but terrified. And a frightened enemy with superior firepower is the most dangerous kind. As humanity prepared for what might be its last stand, the alien ships continued their approach. Their message was clear: perish. But their actions told a different story. They moved like predators that had cornered something they weren't sure they could control. Stone looked at the tactical display one more time. The alien fleet's formation wasn't just cautious. It was paranoid. Every ship positioned to flee at a moment's notice. Every weapon pointed at Earth, yet somehow revealing more fear than aggression. "Whatever we are," she said quietly, "whatever we can do, it scares them more than death itself." Dr. Thomas Reed had been awake for 36 hours straight, staring at streams of alien data in his makeshift office at NASA's Communications Center. Coffee cups littered his desk, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. But he couldn't stop, not when he was so close to understanding. "Look at this pattern," he said to the empty room, tracing lines of code on his screen. "They're not just sending threats. They're sending their nightmares." Hidden in the aliens' transmissions were massive data packets, historical records, cultural information, and most importantly, their reasons for fear. As Reed decoded more of the data, his hands began to shake. "Dr. Reed." Commander Stone's voice came through his computer. "Tell me you have something." "I do," he said, clicking through files. "But you're not going to believe it. Their entire civilization is built on pure logic. No emotions, no instincts, just cold, hard reasoning. And that's exactly why we terrify them." He sent a decoded video file to the command center. It showed human children laughing one moment and crying the next. Soldiers sharing food with enemies after trying to kill each other hours before. Artists creating beautiful works about destruction. "They've been watching us for months," Reed explained. "Every time they think they understand us, we do something that breaks their logical models. We're chaos to their order." In the Pentagon's command center, Stone watched the decoded alien data with growing amazement. "They're afraid we'll destroy their perfect system," she said. "Not with weapons, but with ideas." "Exactly," Reed replied. "Look at this." He sent another file, showing alien predictions of human behavior. In every scenario, they couldn't compute how humans could be so contradictory yet still function. "How can a species wage war and create art?" an alien report asked. "How can they hurt each other yet risk their lives to save strangers? They defy all rational analysis." Reed pulled up more translations. "Their society is based on absolute certainty. But humans, we live in mazes. We thrive on not knowing. We take leaps of faith. To them, that's more dangerous than any weapon." In orbit, the alien fleet continued its threatening display. But now, with Reed's insights, humanity began to see it differently. Every aggressive move was actually defensive. Every threat was born of fear. "There's something else," Reed said, his voice growing excited. "They found records of our entertainment. Our books, movies, games. Do you know what scared them most? Science fiction." Stone frowned. "Fiction. Why?" "Because we imagine thousands of ways we might die as a species. Alien invasions, robot uprisings, cosmic disasters. And instead of being paralyzed by these fears, we turn them into stories. We learn from them. We prepare for them." He sent more decoded files. "They found our disaster preparation plans, our survival bunkers, our space colonies. They realized we're ready for almost anything. Not because we've experienced it, but because we've imagined it." In their ships above Earth, the aliens watched human communications with growing unease. Despite their warning, despite their show of force, humans weren't panicking. Instead, they were doing what they always did, trying to understand. "Look at these readings," Reed continued. "Their ships aren't just in attack formation. They're arranged to record everything we do. They're still studying us, even now. They're trying to make sense of us through logic, but they can't." Stone understood now. Because we're not logical. We're emotional and rational at the same time. We can hate and love, destroy and create, all in the same moment. And that's what the warning was really about, Reed said softly. Perish. They weren't threatening us. They were predicting their own fate. They believe that contact with humanity will make their perfect, logical society fall apart. As Reed spoke these words, new data began streaming in. The alien ships were broadcasting again, but this time, their messages were different. They weren't threats anymore. They were questions. They want to understand us, Reed whispered, watching the data flow. But they're afraid that understanding us will change them forever. And deep in space, the alien fleet held its position, caught between fear and fascination, watching as humanity did the one thing they found most terrifying: faced the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. The alien fleet made its first move at dawn. A single ship, smaller than the others, dropped out of formation and headed toward Earth. Everyone expected an attack. What they got was something worse. Captain Miller's cargo ship Star Hauler was closest to the approaching vessel. All hands, brace for impact, he ordered, watching the alien ships approach. But instead of weapons fire, they received a transmission. The alien ship projected images of Earth's future: cities in ruins, oceans rising, sky darkened by pollution. Your chaos will spread, the transmission stated. Logic demands your extinction. In the Pentagon, Commander Stone watched the feed. They're trying to justify it, she said. Not to us, to themselves. That's when the real attack began. Not with weapons, but with technology. Earth's communications started failing. Power grids flickered. Defense systems went offline. They're not trying to destroy us. Dr. Reed's voice crackled through the failing comms. They're trying to contain us. Like a virus they're afraid will spread. Miller watched from his ship as the alien vessel systematically disabled Earth's satellites, but something about their attack pattern caught his attention. Tom, he called to his sensor operator, notice anything strange about their firing solution. Tom studied his readings. They're being careful, really careful, like they're afraid of causing any unnecessary damage. Miller smiled. Exactly. They're fighting like someone who's afraid of their own strength. He turned to his crew. And that's how we're going to beat them. The Star Hauler was just a cargo ship, but Miller had run supplies through asteroid fields and solar storms. He knew how to move when the odds were against him. All power to engines, he ordered. Plot a course straight at them. His crew looked at him like he was mad, but they obeyed. The Star Hauler, a simple cargo vessel, accelerated toward one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. The alien vessel immediately backed away, maintaining its careful distance, just as Miller had predicted. They're so afraid of chaos, he said, they can't handle it when we do something illogical. He grabbed the comm. Commander Stone, are you seeing this? In the Pentagon, Stone was already issuing new orders. All vessels, execute random flight patterns. Do the unexpected. They're not ready for chaos. Earth's remaining ships began moving erratically, breaking every rule of space combat. Cargo ships charged warships. Shuttles flew in spiral patterns. Mining vessels released clouds of debris, creating unpredictable hazards. The alien fleet's perfect formation began to break. Their careful, logical attack plans couldn't account for humans acting against their own self-interest. Their sensors are designed to predict logical behavior, Reed reported, watching the data. They can't track what they can't understand. Miller's Star Hauler pushed closer to the alien ship, ignoring multiple warnings. When they were nearly touching, he gave his final order. Release the mining charges. The explosion wasn't meant to destroy the alien vessel. Instead, it created a cloud of metallic dust that covered their sensors. Blind and surrounded by unpredictable human ships, the alien vessel did something unprecedented. It made a mistake. Its perfect positioning faltered. Its careful calculations failed. And in that moment of confusion, the Star Hauler's point defense lasers, meant for clearing asteroids, found a weak point in their hull. The alien ship didn't explode. Instead, its systems simply shut down, as if the very idea of being defeated by primitive human weapons was too illogical to process. As Miller's crew secured the disabled vessel, reports came in from around Earth. The alien fleet was pulling back, their perfect formation now ragged and uncertain. They never expected this, Stone said, watching them retreat. They thought superior technology and logic would guarantee victory. They didn't account for human improvisation. In his lab, Reed decoded the alien fleet's internal communications. They're confused, terrified. Their logical models can't explain what just happened. A cargo ship shouldn't have been able to disable a warship. It doesn't make sense. That's humanity's real strength, Miller replied through the comm. We don't always make sense. And that's exactly why we survive. Dr. Reed hadn't slept in days. The captured alien ship had given him access to their complete database, and what he found changed everything. He rushed to the emergency meeting at the Pentagon, his tablet filled with new discoveries. Commander Stone was waiting with Captain Miller, who had been called in after his successful attack. The room was tense with anticipation. Their entire society is built on certainty, Reed explained, pulling up alien documents. But look at this. Some of them are starting to question their own logic. Our actions are causing a civil war in their ranks. The main screen showed alien ships changing positions. Some maintained their aggressive stance, while others pulled back to neutral positions. They're splitting into two groups, Stone observed. But why? Reed played a decoded transmission from the alien fleet. We were wrong, an alien voice stated. Their chaos brings growth. Their disorder creates new possibilities. The old logic cannot stand. Miller leaned forward. They're learning from us. I thought they were afraid of that. Some still are, Reed replied. But others, they're fascinated. Our ability to embrace uncertainty, to face the unknown, it's making them question everything they believed. In space, the division became clearer. Half the alien fleet maintained attack positions, while the others formed a protective line between Earth and their own people. Commander, a young officer called out, we're receiving a direct transmission from one of the alien ships. They want to talk. Stone shared looks with Reed and Miller. This was the moment that would decide everything. Put them through. The alien that appeared on screen was different from what they expected. Its crystalline form pulsed with changing colors, showing emotion in a way their previous encounters hadn't. I am Leader West, it said. We have watched you, feared you. But some of us have learned from you. Your chaos, it brings creation. Your disorder, it brings growth. And the others? Stone asked, watching the hostile ships on the tactical display. They believe you must be destroyed before you change us further. West's form darkened. They do not understand that we are already changed. Simply by observing you, we have begun to evolve. Reed studied the readings from West's ship. Their neural patterns are different now. They're developing the ability to process uncertainty, to embrace change. In orbit, the two alien factions faced each other. The logic-bound ships prepared weapons, while West's followers maintained their defensive position around Earth. You must understand, West continued. For millions of years, we believed perfect logic was the height of evolution, but you showed us something new. The power of adaptation, of evolution through chaos. Miller spoke up. So what happens now? Now, West replied, we must make a choice. Continue as we are, bound by rigid logic, or embrace uncertainty and grow. My followers have chosen growth. As if to answer, the hostile ships launched their first attack, not at Earth, but at their own kind. West's followers responded not with perfect, logical formations, but with human-inspired unpredictability. They're using our tactics, Miller observed with amazement. Everything they learned from watching us. Stone watched the battle unfold. They're fighting for the right to change, she said softly. For the right to be more like us. The battle in space looked nothing like traditional alien warfare. West ships moved chaotically, unpredictably, just as human vessels had done. The logic-bound ships couldn't adapt fast enough to this new way of fighting. "Send them our tactical data," Stone ordered suddenly. "Everything we know about irregular warfare. If they're willing to learn from us, let's teach them." Reed transmitted the data, and West ships began incorporating human strategies in real time. The rigid formations of their opponents began to crumble against attacks they couldn't predict or understand. "Your gift of chaos," West transmitted, "may save our species from stagnation." As the battle continued above, humanity watched their greatest fear become their greatest ally: the power to change, to evolve, to embrace the unknown. What had started as a war of extinction was becoming something else: a revolution. The battle ended not with destruction, but with revelation. Above Earth, the remains of the logic-bound fleet surrendered, their perfect formations broken by tactics they never expected to face, their own allies using human strategies. In the Pentagon's main conference room, Commander Stone sat with Dr. Reed, Captain Miller, and their new ally, Leader West. The aliens' crystalline form shimmered with colors that they now understood represented complex emotions. "Your chaos was never meant to be feared," West said, its surface rippling with blue and gold patterns. "It was meant to be understood. We were too afraid to see that before." Reed nodded, studying the final battle data on his tablet. "Your ships that adapted human tactics achieved in hours what might have taken you centuries to develop through pure logic." "Because we stopped trying to control chaos," West replied, "and learned to flow with it instead." Outside, the world was changing. Alien ships now hovered peacefully over major cities, their crews making first contact not as conquerors or victims, but as students eager to learn. Miller, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke. "I still don't understand something. Why did our unpredictability scare you so much in the first place?" West's form darkened momentarily. "Imagine living in a world where everything follows perfect patterns, where every action can be calculated, every reaction predicted. Then suddenly discovering beings who break every pattern, who thrive on uncertainty, who grow stronger from disorder. Like introducing a wild card into a perfectly ordered deck," Reed suggested. "Yes," West's colors brightened. "But now we see that the wild card doesn't destroy the game. It makes it more interesting, more alive." Stone pulled up the latest global reports. Around the world, humans and aliens were beginning to work together. Alien logic combined with human intuition was already solving problems that had puzzled both species for generations. "Your technology and our adaptability," Stone mused. "Your precision and our creativity. We're stronger together than apart." West moved to the window, watching as a group of alien scientists excitedly examined a simple human garden. "Do you know what fascinates my people the most about humans?" it asked. The humans shook their heads. "Your art, your music, the way you find beauty in imperfection. We had perfection, but you showed us beauty." In orbit, the captured alien ships were being repaired, not as weapons of war, but as symbols of change. Their once rigid designs were being modified, incorporating human innovations that no logical analysis would have ever suggested. "The warning we sent," West said softly. "Perish. We were wrong. It should have been flourish." Reed looked up from his data. "Your society won't be the same after this." "No," West agreed, its colors showing what they now recognized as joy. "We will be better. Your chaos is teaching us to grow, and perhaps our logic can help guide your advancement." Miller smiled. "A partnership of order and chaos." "The perfect balance," West replied. As the day ended, humans and aliens worked side by side across the globe. The aliens who had once feared humanity's wrath now saw humanity's wisdom. Their logic was learning to dance with human intuition, creating something entirely new. Stone stood at the window with West, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that even the aliens were learning to appreciate for their chaotic beauty. "You came to save the galaxy from us," she said, "but instead, we saved each other." West's form glowed with understanding. "That is the final lesson humanity taught us. Sometimes the thing you fear most is the very thing you need to grow." Above them, stars began appearing in the darkening sky. But they were no longer distant, unreachable points of light. They were destinations waiting to be explored by a partnership that combined the best of logic and chaos, order and creativity, certainty and wonder. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.